Hello and welcome to another C3 Stingray video. This is part 4 of my series. I bought a 1979 Corvette for $1,500 and I'm trying to rebuild it before April of next year. And we're up to part 4 already. Last one I took out the engine and transmission, and before that we cleaned this paint up. You just need to watch the series. Go back, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Hit that subscription button and that notification button and you'll see everything that happens from beginning to end on this car. And I'm trying to move along here as quick as I can, but there's a lot of life things getting in the way. But in this episode we're going to take this front suspension off. And I know I have a bit of an advantage having this engine out before I did this, but it's pretty much still the same. Even if the engine in, all this stuff is accessible. The big thing with this is I don't think anything's been off of this car. Maybe the bearings have been changed. It looks like the bearings may have been changed at some point, but beyond that I think everything's been on here since 1979. So it's a nice little rustling job getting this stuff off. So let's just jump into the video. And here's the front suspension we're going to take off. As you can see, there's no engine in this car, so it's going to be a lot easier for me than if you have an engine in there. But even with the engine in there, it's still all accessible. Our first thing is going to be taking off these front calipers. Two 16mm bolts. And I'm taking mine completely off because I'm going to rebuild them, but if you're not rebuilding yours, you do not have to disconnect the line. You could just hang it up somewhere, hang the caliper up somewhere out of your way, so you can just, then you wouldn't have to worry about bleeding the brakes and doing all that. You could just hang it up somewhere. But we're taking the caliper off here. It was a 16mm on that line also. Now we're going to take this cap off on the hub. I just use a screwdriver and try to keep working it until I can get it in there and twist it and pop it off. And we got the cotter pin, which I've been wrestling with a lot of cotter pins. This one came out pretty easy, but the other ones I kind of wrestle with. We get this cotter pin out, and then we have that nut, and this nut's never on tight. It's a 32mm, but you probably put a crescent wrench or anything on there. They're never very tight. Then you can just pull the whole hub off. You can take your rotor off if yours isn't riveted on, but mine is, so I'm going to have to deal with that later. Now we need to take the shock off. This shock, I tried to take it off and it just spun, and I tried to put vice grips on it and turn it, and it just wasn't coming loose. And I'm not going to use this shock again, so I said screw it. I just ended up cutting the top off and pulling it off from underneath because I wasn't going to wrestle with this. Shock was like 14mm, two 14mm bolts on the bottom. Next is a stabilizer bar. You're going to need a wrench on the top, and it's a 9/16. It's like all these sizes are really interchangeable with a lot of standard and metric. I try to use metric when I can, but sometimes the standards work better. Now we're going to take off the steering linkage on the front. As you can see, that arm is bent. I don't know if you can tell in this shot or not, but that arm is bent. I had a lot of trouble getting this cotter pin out. And it was a 17mm on there. As you can see, at my pickle fork, I use a pickle fork that's on an air hammer, and it works really great. I love it. Now we're jacking up under here because the next thing is we're taking this spring out, and I'm hooking this ratchet strap to the spring just to hold it in place. You can see that ratchet strap there hooked around the spring just to hold it in place in case it pops out. And we take another cotter pin out and another 19mm up there, and there's my air hammer pickle fork, and it is broken free. Now we can let that jack down and take that ratchet strap off, and then I had to use a crowbar to kind of work it out of there and got the spring out of the way. Now we're on the lower. Once again, another cotter pin, and this one's a 22mm. Now here I put the nut back on the top one because I'm going to use that pickle fork again to knock this bottom off, and I didn't want it to just fall on the ground, so I put that nut, a few threads on the top so it hold it. Then I can take the nut off and drop the whole thing. Now all we have left is this lower control arm and the upper control arm. As you can see where the bolts are on the upper control arm. Have to be getting those right by the engine. On the lower, there's a big 22 millimeter there. And as you'll see, I have issues with this one. And there's two 16 millimeter bolts there. Once you take those all out, it should just drop, but it did not drop. And I tried to turn that bolt from the top and it is seized in there. So we're going to come back to that one. And we're going to go back to the upper. I'm having to move this little plastic piece out of the way. And these are 18 millimeter bolts. And as you can see underneath, it's where you can grab them from the other side if you need to. But I did not need to. These bolts were kind of seized up too, so I just put the 18 on there and knocked them off pretty easy. And I took a crowbar and moved it out where I could take those shims out. There's shims on the front and back. And I always bag those up and right where they came from, so I can put them back the same way when I put this back, because it's a good starting point when you're trying to align the front end if you know where you were before. And I put a nut on there and like hammered these bolts to get them loose because they were stuck in there. And I just worked this out. It's really important you keep those shims though, and really remember where you got them from. It's really helpful when you go to align this later. If you put it back the same way it came off, you're kind of close to where you need to be. Well, we left that other lower control arm coming back that I sprayed it, and now I'm on the driver's side doing everything that we just did on the other side. So the only reason I'm showing this is because I ran into a couple other issues on this side that I didn't run in on that side. So I was just kind of showing this in really fast motion just so you can see the whole process again on this side. Where I had my trouble is with this top ball joint. I could not get this nut to come loose. After using a ratchet on it forever, it would just started spinning. The whole thing was spinning. The nut wasn't coming loose, and the whole little shaft and everything was just spinning. Tried to put air on it. That didn't do any good. So I finally ended up having to put a pair of vice grips on the bottom of it and keep working it with a wrench, trying to get it off. And that's when I noticed that it wasn't holding. I mean, as I was doing it, this was dropping down. So as I kept turning it, like before we used to have a pickle fork to break that loose, it wasn't holding at all. It was coming down as I was loosening it up. You see a close up here. You can see as it's dropping down as I'm loosening it. So I made sure that jack was really under there, and I put the strap on to hold it in place, that spring in place, because I was really afraid it was just going to pop off, and as you can see here, it does. It just comes right off. The spring itself pushed it off. But it was no big deal. So now I just got to work that spring out. I had to take that strap off and we'll continue on. As you can see, I needed that pickle fork on the bottom. The top just fell off. Actually, the pickle fork was really needed on the bottom. Now I'm taking this lower control arm off on this driver's side, and as you can see, I had to put a wrench on the top and hold that bolt because the bolt was actually turning, which is really what it should do. The other side was seized up and it wasn't turning at all. But as you can see, it's a good example. I've had to put that jack under there because this is just falling right off once it took those bolts out. So that should be how it comes off normally. And there I'm taking that top control arm off. Now we're going to take the stabilizer bar off. There's 4 13mm bolts. Take that off. See, I have my safety glasses on. There's a lot of rust and crud flying off from underneath these things. You're probably going to wear safety glasses. These two bolts on the other side just broke when I tried to take them off. Both of them. Next, we're going to need to take off the idler arm. And this is the final piece we need to take off. As you can see, that's part of the steering linkage. It's got a 19mm nut and two 15mm bolts holding it on, and another cotter pin which I battle with. Take off this 19mm nut, pickle fork that off, and now these two 15mm bolts, and we have everything off except for that lower control arm on the passenger side. I still got to work that. So I put the air hammer on it and just kept spinning it, trying to get it to break, and it finally broke loose. I guess that PV blaster finally did enough to get it loose, so it's going to keep spinning until it falls off. And there it goes. And this is everything we took off. As you can see in the bags there, I have the shims for that top control arm. Oh, and also those two coil springs. And that's it.
Actually, the deal I made at Buff Whalen allows me to do other things with my money. Thank you, Buff Whalen.
Hey, we got it done. I know some of you are thinking, well, the engine was out of the way. How easy is that? If you really think about it, the only thing that was in the way with the engine was to be those upper control arms, and maybe that idler arm. The engine would be kind of in the way, but still, it's not really bad because I've done this. This will be the 5th time I've done this, and the other 4 times the engine was in place, and I don't ever remember having any issues getting things out of the way because of the engine. So you got plenty of room to work. In the next video, we're going to be taking all those parts, cleaning them up, painting them, and rebuilding them with new bushings and stuff. So you'll want to check that out. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do, and hit that notification so you know when new videos come up. We might put them back on that same video. I'm not sure. We'll just see how that goes. Let's take a look at that checklist real quick. And how many days do I have left? Yeah, that seems like a lot of days if I was working on this full time, but I'm only getting out here 1 or 2 days a week. And while I was under here, I've seen a lot of other things I'm probably going to have to add to that checklist. And I know one of them is those electric headlight conversions. I've been looking into those, and I think I'm definitely going to do that on this. So that will be a video at some point on this front end. So that'll be added to the list pretty soon. There's a couple other things I may have to add to the list too that I saw was in there. So it'd be good just to subscribe to the channel and keep watching and see how this car goes from this to on the road next year on April 8th of 2026. And that is it. I will quit talking. If you need new, used C3, C4, C5 Corvette parts, go to my website at c3stingray.com. And that is it. I will see you on the road.